Good morning. Welcome to Alki United Church of Christ on this beautiful April morning. So good to be together, all of you. Oops, I just lost my microphone. Oh, I'll just hold on to it. Let us breathe in the peace of God, the light of love. Let us rest in God's love. We acknowledge that we are on the unceded traditional land of the Coast Salish people. We honor with gratitude the original stewards of this land, the Duwamish tribe. We boldly proclaim that this is a place of radical welcome and inclusion, and pray that we would continue to find ways to put action to our seeking of justice. Wherever you are on your spiritual journey, you have a place. You have a home here today.
So the scripture reading today is from Luke chapter 24, verses 36 through 48, and it's in the New Revised Standard Version if you're reading along. While they were talking about this, Jesus himself stood among them and said to them, "Peace be with you." They were startled and terrified and thought that they were seeing a ghost. He said to them, "Why are you frightened? And why did doubts arise in your hearts? Look at my hands and my feet. See that it is I myself. Touch me and see, for a ghost does not have flesh and bones, as you see that I have." And when he had said this, he showed them his hands and his feet. Yet for all their joy, they were still disbelieving and wondering. And he said to them, "Have you anything here to eat?" They gave him a piece of broiled fish, and he took it and ate it in their presence. Then he said to them, "These are my words that I spoke to you while I was still with you, that everything written about me in the law of Moses, the prophets, and the Psalms must be fulfilled." Then he opened their minds to understand the scriptures, and he said to them, "Thus it is written that the Messiah is to suffer and to rise from the dead on the third day, and that repentance and forgiveness of sins is to be proclaimed in his name to all nations, beginning from Jerusalem. You are witnesses of these things."
Here to eat? I love that Jesus asked this question. It came right on the heels of his powerful statement, "Peace be with you," and showing the disciples his hands, his feet, that they might believe he was truly risen. Have you anything here to eat? It was such a human question, and that was the point, really, to demonstrate that he was actually flesh and bone. But it's a question we don't always ask, even when we're hungry, even if we have a need. It's not always seen as polite to show up at someone's house and before even sitting down to ask for a hot meal, but Jesus does. Maybe you have someone in your life that you are so comfortable with, so yourself with, that when you enter their home and there's something you need, you don't think twice about it. You just come out and ask. I can greet my parents in their living room and say, "I could go for a glass of wine. Do you have any open?" Because I know not only are they not going to be offended that I would be so forward in asking, but that it will give them joy to meet my need. That they'll say, "Well, we'll open one. How about some cheese and crackers with your wine?" And when they greet us in our living room, we live in the same house, and we have popped and dressed the popcorn that we make a few times a week, they know to help themselves, because there's never a time that we would say, "Oh, sorry, you can't have any." That wouldn't happen. I remember years ago, I had finished cooking some lentils for dinner. This was at a different house. Some years ago, my son was probably in elementary school at the time and had a friend over for a play date. Well, when his mom came to pick him up, and she had become a friend of mine and still is a good friend of mine, we were chatting, just standing up in the kitchen for a moment or two, and she commented on how good those lentils smell. And she said, "May I have a little bowl of those?" And I spooned some out for her, and she ate them, commenting on how tasty they were and how grateful she was for the snack. I loved that, because how often does that happen apart from family? It made such an impression on me. Now, perhaps I should have thought to offer her something to eat, but I hadn't. It hadn't even crossed my mind. I was making dinner. But it made such an impression on me that she felt comfortable enough with me to come out and ask for what she wanted, what she needed. And it gave me so much joy to give it to her, to meet that need. So much so that I remember it all these years later. And so does she. Have you anything here to eat? I like to think that Jesus was so close to his disciples that he could come out and ask for anything he needed. When he was in their presence, he could relax and take a moment to check in with himself. Oh, I'm hungry. His needs could be tended. This text is often understood to emphasize Jesus's humanity, that he was physically, not only spiritually resurrected. He was not a ghost, as demonstrated by the fact that he could eat a piece of broiled fish and that it didn't just fall right through to the floor after he put it in his mouth. And the concept of Jesus proving that he's not a ghost, that's all well and good. But what I notice encountering this story is Jesus demonstrating his humanity and asking for what he needs. He doesn't wait for anyone to pick up on any subtle cues. He just lays it out plain as can be. Have you anything here to eat? Now, sure, as theologians through the ages have written, perhaps he wants to demonstrate the veracity of the bodily resurrection. But also, perhaps, he's just hungry. And with his beloved friends, he doesn't need to tiptoe around his growling stomach, waiting for a dinner invitation. He just says what he needs, and his friends rush to broil the fish, to plate it just so, to ask, what else would you like? A mug of water, a cup of wine, some crusty bread. It's really important for us to ask for what we need. Jesus teaches us that here. It's really important for us to cultivate relationships where everyone can be made comfortable to ask for what they need, to be reminded that their hunger matters. The hunger of one is the hunger of all. That's why we make casseroles to feed people every month at the welcome table. Have you anything here to eat? It's this tender human admission of need. We need to be fed and watered, friends. We need fresh air and exercise and rest. We need to know what we need and how to get it. We need to listen to the needs of other people and consider our role in the feeding and tending of others. May we cultivate relationships where we are attuned to listening for the needs of others, where we welcome the direct sharing of what is needed. We can't read each other's minds. Brett and I have been married 27 years, and we don't know what the other person's thinking. We need to make it plain. We need to ask for what we need. We are embodied people with all kinds of needs, and Jesus was too. Jesus had been through it. and he was processing all that had happened, it must have felt so good for him to be with his friends. After a big experience, to come and be with friends and be fed, it is a precious thing. The meal after an important event is always special. It's that after party where we integrate the thing that's happened. We recapitulate it, saying, let's go over that again. Wasn't it amazing? What was your favorite part? Jesus retells the story of his death and his resurrection, reminding them of the prophecies that foretold it. The story enters their minds and their bodies once more. It happened over broiled fish. Sometimes we hear the question, have you anything here to eat? When hunger is acute, when someone's desperate. One of you told me lately that you carry around gift cards for Starbucks, McDonald's, to give out when you see someone who probably could use a meal, a muffin, a cup of coffee. I have a friend who always has Safeway gift cards in her purse, ready to give away. These are great ways to easily answer when someone asks, have you anything here to eat? People in Gaza ask, have you anything here to eat? And it is heart-wrenching. We must not allow ourselves to become numb to their cries. I think the death of the 7 folks from World Central Kitchen was especially hard to bear because they risked and lost their lives feeding people. And they were not alone. They were among over 200 humanitarian aid workers who have been killed since the attacks on October 7. With Gaza on the brink of famine, we must continue to contact our representatives to hold our government to account. It only takes a moment. You can go on to ucc.org, and there's a link right from our homepage, urging our representatives to uphold the U.S. obligation to prevent genocide in Gaza by rejecting further military aid and financial assistance to Israel. And you can keep signing that petition again and again and again. When we feel helpless in the face of a need so huge, we can do something, however small, whether signing that petition or donating money to aid organizations or uniting with others in prayer or giving hugs to weary friends. Because someone is always asking, have you anything here to eat? It is that basic question, that basic need. I went on a short clergy retreat after Easter, and I spent my time resting and reading, walking the labyrinth, and playing board games with my colleagues. But I remember the days by the meals. Salmon and asparagus the first evening. The second, breakfast was a vegetable frittata baked in cast iron pans. Lunch was the best falafel I've ever had. And a tasty nut loaf that evening. It was almost all vegetarian, which I was very happy about. Breakfast on Wednesday was French toast with berries. And we spent much of our mealtime remarking on the food, just enjoying it together. And part of what made it extra delicious is that yearly retreat is a gift from our conference to clergy and a retreat partner of their choosing at no cost. But what made it a bit bitter is all those who were not at the table. Only 4 other ministers across the whole region came. And I was the only one that brought a retreat partner. And I found that really interesting. I realized that my schedule and position here is a privilege. It allows me to have time away. Most evidently don't have that. Most of my colleagues didn't get the chance to taste those fabulous meals. Our conference is set up for people like me in traditional pastor jobs. But we are the minority. We haven't adapted to meet the needs of my colleagues who work for organizations that don't offer time away for retreat. Have you anything here to eat? Some of my friends who are overworked chaplains and therapists, they haven't even had the opportunity to ask that question. They didn't even have a moment to read the email that came about the retreats. They haven't had the time to take time with loved ones and be nourished. And I'm sure that's true for many people, no matter what the department or line of work. Our society is all about production. What have we accomplished? What do we have to show for our time? And we are not set up to meet the basic needs of people. We don't have equal access to health care. We have food deserts. We have children who go without food in our nation of great wealth. Have you anything here to eat? It didn't seem to matter to Jesus what the food was. He was hungry. He wasn't about to be picky. And food with Jesus was often more than just food. He loved telling its slant, so of course it's going to have layers and layers of meaning. Just like in this instance, his asking for food was a statement about resurrection, but it's also simply about food, about asking for a need to be met, and eating a piece of broiled fish, of saying, oh, this is so good. Thank you so much. Thank you for taking care of me. Have you anything here to eat? We are not told the words the disciples said in answer, only their action. And they gave him a piece of broiled fish, and he ate it in their presence. Because eating with friends, it's not always about the words that are shared. It's that warm feeling in the room, the hum of conversation, the clinking of tableware, the needs voiced and the needs met. Have you anything here to eat? Let us ask the question, share the food, and take care of one another.